Today we're taking a look at ways to improve in Smite without actually playing. Some of this may be common sense to some of you, but generally I think there should be something in here for everyone. Starting with the elephant in the room, what the fuck is my interface? So if you get this video link from somewhere else after asking that question, here's your answer. If you've already adjusted your interface, feel free to skip to roughly 3:30 where I start talking about the other points. Adjusting your interface can actually help you play Smite. In order to do that, we're going to go through the whole process of doing it. What you want to do first is set up a custom Conquest game. Conquest is important because you can see the proper map there. And just fill it with bots. Make sure to turn off spawn lane minions so the bots don't move, and then get right into it. What we're going to try to achieve in the following steps is to make information that is important for you more visible on the screen. A lot of information is basically hidden in the corners of the screen. It's not very helpful there because you're not going to look across the whole screen while playing. Instead, we're trying to center everything while still be able to see everything around you clearly. I chose Amaterasu here because she has a pretty huge passive icon and she has a passive that you can activate, so that's pretty helpful for the UI settings. So after you're all set, press escape and go into the HUD editor. This is where you can basically change your whole interface. What you want to do first is scale everything down that doesn't have to be as large as it is, and also hide everything in the bottom right, because I'm pretty sure you will know those hotkeys already. You can also disable elements. I do that. I don't know if it actually helps in any regard, but why not? Then click on the team display. What you can do here is choose the alternative layout or the original layout. I prefer the original layout because it lines up better with the enemy display and it's easier to place it under your character. I adjust some other minor things as well because I don't like things overlapping. You don't have to do that, but you can. Sometimes scaling things on the edges doesn't work quite as it should. In that case, just use the scale bar in the HUD editor. I do the same thing for the enemy display and line it up with the team display. Now I have all the information for both teams right under my character, which is pretty much where you always look, so it stays in your peripheral vision. I line up some other small things before we get to the most important part. The minimap. I move the minimap right to my character. This feels very unusual at first, and you might think it may block your vision. There's a trick for that though. There's the opacity setting in the HUD editor, which you can use in order to reduce the opacity of the minimap, basically making it see-through. While my minimap used to be smaller and more towards the bottom of the screen, I now moved it up and scaled it up quite a fair bit, just so I have the minimap in my vision at all times. You will have to figure out the perfect measurements for you yourself, but generally I would recommend scaling it rather larger than smaller and giving it a fair bit of opacity because you don't really need to see the path, you will know them after a very short time. There are some other settings I will recommend, though these are a matter of choice. Go to Settings, User Interface, and turn on Show Your Health if you haven't. This will show you your own health over your character, and while this blocks your vision a little bit and I wish we could move it somehow, it's still better than only having it at the bottom of the screen. In the same sense, you can adjust some things about targeting. In order to make up for the blocked vision, use the ruler to know the exact range of abilities. The ground target options I would recommend are either high contrast or arrow. The interface, however, is by far not the only thing you can change in order to improve. Another way to improve is adjusting your key bindings. I've already made a video on that, which I'm going to link here, but you don't necessarily have to use those key bindings. Just consider if the standard key bindings are working for you. I think they are not helpful for most players simply because the keys are not aligned in any way that makes much sense aside of being 1, 2, 3, 4 obviously, but it's not very logical from an ergonomical standpoint, so to speak. The key bindings can obviously be adjusted on console as well, where you have different setups that might be better than the standard one. Number 3. Learn the VGS system. You don't have to play Smite to learn VGS. Just Google Smite VGS practice and you will find plenty of different sites with different functions in order to improve your VGS skills in Smite. This is obviously very helpful for communication and especially helps you practicing those commands that you don't use very often. Number 4. Increasing your map awareness. Ideally, you should be looking at the minimap every 6 seconds or so. This is something you really need to get used to, and even when the minimap is in the center of your vision, you will sometimes forget about it and not do it as frequently as you should. You can improve on this by using a loop timer that reminds you of checking the minimap frequently. I looked for loop timers online and I couldn't really find one where I could set my own sound signal, And that kind of annoyed me, as the sounds they came with are usually very annoying and very loud. And if you hear them like every 6 seconds in a match, it becomes very frustrating and just not fun. So as a project with some friends, we created our own loop timer. I will provide the link down below in the description and you can download it. It's pretty simple, pretty standard, has a start, pause, clear button. You can set your own time. I would recommend 6 or 7 seconds. And then the loop timer just repeats over and over and over in the background while you're playing, and you will hear the audio signal whenever it reaches 0. You can also select your own audio file there. I've included an additional audio file that might be a little less annoying, and that way you can easily learn how to pay more attention to the map. After some time you won't need the timer anymore, and you will just be able to automatically, instinctively do the same thing. You can run the timer by using the jar file, which is probably the version that your computer won't have any troubles with. If that doesn't work for you, you can run the exe file. It's absolutely clean, but I know that some computers aren't too happy about exe files from unknown sources, so it might get you a virus warning or whatever. There's definitely no virus in there. I thought I'd just let you know in case you get a warning. Number 5, warding. This one is very simple. This is something you have to do in-game, but you just have to be in that mindset before you get into a game and just remember it for future games and just do it. Whenever you leave a base, as long as there's any gold left, buy wards. Ideally, buy sentry wards. Sentry wards are a lot better than normal wards in most situations. And just get used to buying wards whenever you leave base. You will eventually know when to not buy wards as well, or certain characters which shouldn't get too many wards, but in the beginning it's never wrong to have at least one ward on you. Warding will improve your gameplay, no matter what. If you're not used to warding yet, then you should definitely keep this point in mind. Number 6, learning builds. It's easy to go with the recommended items in Smite, and sometimes they're not too bad, but generally there are better options. There used to be a very good site that covered all the necessary information for builds by pro players, called Smite Junkies. However, with Season 3, that site has been kind of outdated. At the moment, the best source I can recommend is Tier Monster. Tier Monster may not always have the perfect build, but all those builds are decent enough to be used to a level that you won't fail because of your build, while if you just build random stuff, that might just be your downfall in a game. Number 7, and this is the last point, watching streams. Learning from other players that have more experience with the game can be extremely helpful. If you're just looking for mechanical strategies on the highest level and rotations and so on, you're probably best off watching a pro player who might not commentate as much on what he does, but just watch what he does. If you need more specific information or you have questions regarding anything, it makes more sense to go to a streamer that may not be quite as huge. Like, for example, me, you know? Where you can ask questions in chat and you will get answers, which may not always happen on the pro streams. It really depends on which level of play you're on, where you're best off watching streams. The only streams that will not help you all that much with improving are fun streams. I'm not saying don't watch fun streams by any means, but they are just not there to help you improve playing the game. If you follow all or at least some of these advices, you should be able to improve your gameplay without actually having to play the game for it. However, the best teacher will always be the game itself. Unless you're at a very high level where watching streams may be better for you than actually playing, it's almost always best to just play Smite and get used to the game more, get better mechanically, which is my biggest problem, and that way improve on your own gameplay. I hope this was helpful. Thank you guys for watching. Dukesloth out.